It's not usually my favorite thing to talk about, to be honest with you, Pete, and that's just this Draymond Green nonsense that is going on. But unfortunately, we have to talk about it just because of everything that's going. So we're gonna hit the live scene really quick and get right into it right away. And that is, of course, Draymond Green firing back at Jordan Poole's dad and also Kevin Garnett. It seemed like he had a busy day on Twitter today. And this is what Draymond Green said after the tweet from Jordan Poole's dad, talking about kind of how Draymond Green was kind of ducking him and this whole time. Draymond Green goes on to say, "That's cute. It's impossible to avoid you in the arena for a year champ. I got to get my family from that family room every game and stop using those words. They usually don't go over well amongst men." We also have another quote from him, and that is, of course, Draymond Green falling for a fake tweet coming from the NBA Central, which, of course, is the parody account of NBA Central. And I know that, this is kind of prevalent on Twitter and mostly a lot of places on the internet, but really on Twitter, especially with the blue check mark. I know it can fool a lot of people. But the quote goes on to call out, Kevin Garnett actually calls out Draymond Green, fakely, of course, talking about how Draymond Green punching JP is like a senior punching a freshman who's half his size and then walks around talking himself up as if he's like that. Come try me, Dre. Which then Draymond Green responds to that one. I tried to when I was a rookie, G, and you started talking to yourself like I wasn't talking to you. What's that like? The freshman picking on the senior citizen that's double his size at Kevin Garnett, which then Kevin Garnett himself responds to him saying that's a fake tweet. NBA Centel at Elon Musk. See what the hell is happening. Fix it. All right, Pete. I have a lot of thoughts, but I kind of want to let you go first on this. I know that there was no prep time or anything like that for you. But what do you make of all this? Again, like this isn't something that I love doing on here on the channel, but I think it just Draymond Green makes it too easy for himself at times. And so, Pete, I'll let you go first here, man.
I mean, there's just zero accountability with this dude, man. I mean, from the very beginning, what did dude do? He never said sorry one single time legitimately and meant it. Whether or not you have that type of energy and that's your persona and that's how, you've made your living in this business, right? I don't ever think it's an excuse to act that way and make it seem like you're being cool or, like whatever that is, man. There's some like faux machismo to it where it's like this is what it takes to be a man as far as Draymond Green is concerned. He even says it in there where he said like, words like that don't go well with men or whatever he says, right? It's like, what does that even mean? That's Jordan Poole's dad saying you punched his son in the face and he doesn't like it. He's not supposed to say that? I mean, it's weird it took so long for Jordan Poole's dad to say it. And how he said it, I'm sure him and Draymond Green have been relatively near each other. And Jordan Poole's father has not said anything to him this past year. Still, what's Draymond's point? What is he saying? He's saying he's, feminine for wanting to stick up for his son or whatever it is. It just doesn't even make any sense. Like, it's so insane, bro. It's like I'm going to use a reference. I don't even like to use this reference. I don't like this individual. I'm sorry if there's people who watch this channel that do. I mean, there is some level of like, this is like the Andrew Tate of the NBA in some ways, man. Like, it's like he's telling people this is what it takes to be a man. Follow my words and my wisdom. But he clearly is just an emotional wreck. It's just an angry person who lets it come out and thinks that this is what it takes to be successful. The problem is neither of them really handled it super well, and the whole situation was just awkward. It's just funny. This is my last thing for this. I find it very, very, very humorous, Bernie, and maybe you'll agree, maybe not. Every time there's a big situation like this with Draymond Green, it takes a year and a half for this dude to get the nuts to come out and say anything about it. And then he acts like I've just been waiting just to, clear the air this whole time, like the KD situation, right?
Yeah.
And then he pretends like that whole situation is completely, he's absent from fault in that situation, as is KD. That's not real life, though. Like they were almost in a physical altercation on the court the year after they won a title, and it was a train wreck for that season. It literally is the reason KD ended up leaving. Whether or not it was the reason on paper he left 6 months later, it definitely was, one of the initial nails in the coffin. I think it's funny, man. This guy is so manly, so machismo, but he really has to take a long time to come out with the truth about this stuff and, speak candidly about it. I don't know. That's not how I think of masculinity. Like, come out and stand on your own 2 feet and say the truth and say what you mean from the very beginning. If that's how you felt, say it from the beginning. Don't come around a year and a half later. Because what the fake Kevin Garnett said is not true. It's not that wrong. Excuse me, it's not that wrong. It is like he's way bigger than Jordan Poole. Way bigger. It never made sense from the beginning to act like he was a tough guy for doing that. It was a soft move from the beginning, and now he's acting even softer as far as I'm concerned. Bernie,
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah, really quick. I'm just gonna read some of Drunk's comments, and then I'll give you
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
opinion. So Drunk said Draymond falling for a fake account shows he's completely unhinged. Draymond ran KD off, Jordan Poole off when enough is enough. Warriors brass have literally been held hostage by this dude long enough because they scared to break up the trio. Poole's dad wanted to see how the Warrior situation would play out.
That's true, Poole. Or Drunk. It's called you Jordan Poole. I actually agree with you. I think if anything, maybe that is the best explanation is just like, let's see what ends up happening with Jordan Poole on this team. Maybe they'll choose
Yeah.
him over Draymond. That was a big discussion in offseason last year. We talked about it. I know we did.
Yeah. Yeah, because here's my thing with this whole situation. Like, I like Draymond Green as a player. I think he's done a lot of things tremendously for the Warriors team. I even think for kind of solidifying his role. Again, like I don't think anybody else could do that besides him. And whether you hate it or love it, I will say like his impact on this Warriors team is probably going to be for 20 years down the line. We'll talk about it and how impactful it was. But what's funny to me about this whole situation really is, you know, Draymond Green and the rest of these NBA athletes get so annoyed and upset every time a media member asks them a question repeatedly. Who's the
Mm-hmm.
GOAT? Jordan, LeBron. All these other type of questions that these players get annoyed with. But yet here is Draymond Green talking about a 2022 preseason situation, talking about it in a 2023 preseason about to start the league or about to start
Yeah.
training camp and all this other stuff like that in the next couple of months. And we're talking about the same thing right now. I just think it's annoying because we've already had this conversation. There's been some sort of half-hearted apology. Everyone's moved on from it besides Draymond Green and the rest of the NBA players that want to talk about it. I think he's on Patrick Beverly's podcast, or whether I don't know if he's on his or if he was on his. Sorry,
You're talking about? You're talking about Draymond?
yeah, Draymond.
Are you talking about when he was talking to Paul George?
No. He just like there's a clip of him talking with Patrick Beverly about
Oh,
this
okay.
situation. That's where kind of this quote stuff came out, or like he was,
Oh, yeah, yeah. Gotcha. I
yeah,
thought you were changing to a different thing. Gotcha. Keep
yeah.
going. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all good. But I mean, that to me is the frustrating part, Pete. Like when I really think about Draymond Green, again, player bar none, one of the best to ever do it. But just as a person, it just we talk about, like I said, people get mad and frustrated with Draymond Green, or like he gets mad and frustrated with the media talking about all this stuff, but he's the one that continues to do it every time. And that to me is the frustrating part about, wanting to support a guy like Draymond Green, but he continues these antics that continue to, I would say, hinder his career. It continues to hinder him as a
Mm-hmm.
player and a person. And he has a podcast and he has every right to do so. He's more successful than us. And we're kind of a small pin in the haystack. But you can't be mad at the media for asking these questions when you're going to bring up the same talking points over and over again when it comes to the Jordan Poole situation. I At the end of the day, we know that it was wrong for him to punch Jordan Poole, whether or
Mm.
not Jordan Poole called Draymond Green, the B word or whatever
Yeah. What?
happened. It's funny
Imagine how many
because
times he called him
yeah,
names before that.
well, I mean, like Draymond Green did it before. I mean, he did it to Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant didn't like it. He did it to LeBron James. We all know what happened. He got suspended.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so to me, that is where like I said, I get frustrated with the guy like Draymond Green as the person because he does all these things, but we continue to talk about the antics of Draymond Green. We don't talk about, hey, Draymond Green is the ball player. Hey, Draymond Green talking about, X's and O's with him. Like I know that that is
Mhm.
the most boring stuff, and for the average NBA fan, and I don't want to call out casual fans, but they're not interested in X's and O's. They're not interested in how plays work. They're not
Yeah.
interested in how all this how to set the ball screen, what angle you're setting at. And that's not what they're interested in. They're interested in the drama. I think just like anybody, unfortunately, that's what this society has kind of been. It's just like how much drama can get me the most clicks. And I just think Jordan Poole, excuse me, not Jordan Poole, but Draymond Green is kind of the perfect antithesis of what we're seeing in today's culture, which is get the clicks, get the stuff talking, and then, let your play get you paid and things like that. I don't know. I'm sick of it, Pete, just from that perspective of, we've already talked about the Draymond Green, Jordan Poole stuff ad nauseum. I was about to cuss right there. We talk about it ad nauseum, right? And I just get tired of it. I get sick of it. But here's Draymond Green bringing it back up again.
Mhm.
Whether he's on Pat Beverly, you signed off on being on the show, or whether it's his show. I can't remember whose show it was. But whether or not you signed on for it, you're still talking about it. And enough is enough. Like talk about what your Warriors, what you guys are going to look like this year. I know he just had a quote about him and Chris Paul, talking
Yep.
about saying that he publicly didn't like him before. I'm not going to be like, oh man, I've changed and changed because he's my teammate. Now I look forward to talking amongst men. And again, it's this. I feel like it's this weird obsession with Draymond Green and this sort of masculinity thing that he
Yeah.
keeps talking about. It's just to me, being a man is not stomping on people and kicking him in the nuts. You know what I mean? Like I know that that's a cheap shot.
100%.
I know it's a little bit of a cheap shot to take on Draymond Green, but
It's
you
not.
know,
It's true. It's not a cheap shot. It's true.
and to me, like we talk about like that stuff. Like again, really, to me, being a man is not even saying any of this stuff. Maybe besides the Chris Paul one, I get that one. But talking about responding to Jordan Poole's dad on Twitter, uh, talking about Jordan Poole situation when you've already talked about it before. Like to me, that's not being a man. Being a man is talking about it off the court, doing that stuff. And again, it's this culture that we live in of social media. The internet has done a lot of great things for us, but it's also, I would say, taken away some of the more, I would say, more intimate stuff in terms of like having a conversation with somebody when you're upset with them, or I feel like especially when it comes to like the Steve Kerr Michael Jordan thing that happened years ago, right?
Mhm.
They handled that situation. We never heard about it since. We didn't hear Steve Kerr going on and having a tour about like, yeah,
Yep.
I stood up to Michael Jordan. I said, "What's up?" Or whatever Michael Jordan or whatever Steve Kerr and Michael Jordan got heated about. Like we never heard
Mhm.
any of it. And that to me is
Until 25 years later, yeah.
yeah. And didn't really and we still don't really know why he punched him, right? We just know that he did. Um
Mhm.
and so that to me is where I get frustrated, I would say, when talking about this stuff, because again, I think that this stuff takes away from what we really should be talking about with Draymond Green, which is probably one of the best uh one of the best role players of all time, in my opinion. I think he's up there. You know, guys like Robert Ory
Think he's
come
a
to
role
mind.
player? You think you'd classify him as a role player?
I
There's
would say
actually I'd
I
be
would
questioning of whether it's him or Clay is the second most important person on their team.
I think it's him second. Like
I think it's him, which I would say means he's not a role player because I don't think Clay is a role player. I think they're
yeah,
all star. I think they're stars and Steph is a
yeah,
superstar.
yeah. I mean, again, we've seen Draymond Green like cook before, like during his summer league games. It's actually kind of funny. I remember watching him now. He
Yeah.
was actually getting buckets, and so, but besides the point, like again, I want to talk about him as a player. I don't want to talk about the Jordan Poole. And again, maybe it's my fault because we are doing a segment on this, and whatever you want to say about it, it is what it is. But at the end of the day,
I don't know.
we are reporting it. We're talking about it. But it comes from him first, right? It's not like
Because he brought it up. Yeah.
yeah, it's not like a situation where we're bringing it up because he
Jordan Poole again. No, yeah.
yeah. Jordan Poole is trying to focus on Washington. I don't think I've ever heard Jordan Poole talk about the situation besides maybe
He
that one small interview that he
he
did.
did,
Like,
yeah. It was like what was that, like a week and a half ago though. So I
yeah,
think it's just more topical just because of that. I
yeah,
got two last things before we move on to the next
yeah.
topic or whatever
Go
you want
ahead,
to
man.
do. I do like I think You said a point earlier, we got away from it really quick, but you said something about you were talking about, Draymond's personality,
Hmm.
basically like, this masculinity stuff that he has, right?
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting that we have probably two of the most specifically that guy that we've probably ever seen in sports right now, both in the NBA and they've played together, and it's Kevin Durant and Draymond Green, right?
Hmm.
And let me explain what I mean. I think like they are the two most upset professional sports athletes I've ever seen with how their personality is discussed in the public, and they expect people to just like them because of their play and because of how the game of basketball goes. But they avoid all thought or consequence as to, what their actual, like, their attitude and their personality is, and they think that, like, they get upset that people care about that stuff in terms of talking about them. But that's literally not what real life is. Like, I say that kind of, that's almost my new quote on this channel. I think I say that more than I say the timeline thing nowadays, is like, that's not what real life is, because it's true. Like, out in the real world, 99% of people, it is a complete total package of who you are as a person. It's your personality mixed with your work ethic and your character in your job or whatever it is you do.
Hmm.
All of that stuff matters in terms of how people are going to perceive you.
Yeah.
So it's just so strange that you have these guys who are at the absolute pinnacle of success in the field they're in, and honestly in life. And they're still so concerned with how people view them as a human being, their personality, even though they take no responsibility for the actions they've had that have led people to feel that way about them. That's the thing that gets me the most about it, Bernie. Like, I'm going to bring up a weird comparison, and it's not really comparing it. It's apples and oranges, right? But like, I think of somebody like Mike Tyson, right? Do you think Mike Tyson would have had the career resurgence in terms of notoriety and the way people talk about him if he didn't have some semblance of like inner view of him as a person, right? And how his personality had made people think of him, right?
Yeah.
He realized that over time. A lot of people do. It just seems like these guys, they don't care that that is the case. Like, and here's the final piece of evidence and thing we could talk about here is the interview I was thinking of. I don't remember who I just said it a minute ago. I think I said Paul George. He had that interview with Trey Young. Did you see that
I did not.
or hear about that? So there was a part of the podcast where they got talking about, the villain role that Trey Young gets put in, right? And how he's perceived as a villain. And Draymond, basically, they get into this conversation where, like, the media does that to us. It's not fun to be the villain. We're not trying to be the villain. But then you think of like some of the stuff they do. It's like, what, you're gonna go into Madison Square Garden and mock all the fans, and they're not gonna boo you in Trey Young's case. Like, do you want them to cheer you? That's not what happens in professional sports. Equally for Draymond, it's like, I don't want to be a villain. Okay, don't punch people multiple different instances in your career. Maybe don't, get in a fight with your coach and, well, all these crazy things. Not like a physical fight. You know what I mean? It's just like,
Yeah.
you want this to be the case, but you don't do anything to actually make it that way. Is Draymond the person? And it's a bummer because, honestly, Bernie, he is genuinely one of my favorite basketball players on the court to watch in the 21st century, because there's nobody like him.
Hmm.
He's solely unique. I love Draymond, the basketball player. I hate the immaturity in the way he teaches young men to look at masculinity in this immature, just ignorant way. It's so foolish, man. It's such a bummer.
Yeah.
But
So,
I'll get off
so
my high horse there.
you're good. But here I did find it. It was on the Patrick. It was on the Patrick Beverly broadcast. I forgot that he's a Barstool Sports podcaster.
Yes, he
So
is. Too. But
real
yeah.
quick, we'll listen to
Sometimes
this
I don't
quick
just hit
video.
people. Dialogue, of course, happens over time, and you usually ain't just triggered by something like that fast,
All right.
to that degree. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a team. You know what I'm saying? Like, ain't nobody on my team triggering me, in an instant. we know stuff that you don't say amongst men. You know what I'm saying? We know, things that you have to stand on. I don't just hit people. Dialogue, of course, happens over
Yeah, and I
time,
mean, like,
and
and that's the thing with Draymond Green. It's just this sort of situation where he talks about it, and to me, I just feel like he's lying in a sense that something doesn't trigger him, and he just goes instantly, right? I think about all the foul calls all the time that these refs call him for, and he just absolutely goes, you know, he gets frustrated. He's one of those guys, and it's okay to be one of those guys. Obviously, you need to learn to control it in terms of not letting it get the best of you. Um, but
Yeah.
that to me is the frustrating situation with Draymond. And to go on the point about Kevin Garnett with him, this is one of those things that I feel like NBA athletes and anybody on the internet needs to be careful and look and see what account you are getting that information from before you even post it, before you even talk about it, before you even reply to it, before you at somebody. Please look at your sources, because that is what's going to kill you all the time if you don't get it right. Because then you just look like a fool, because now he deleted it, and because he deleted it, like, everybody's making fun of him, and rightfully so, because it was just, you didn't do your research when you could clearly tell that was, maybe, and that to me is the weird thing that maybe I don't understand as someone that really doesn't use Twitter like that, or any sort of social media like the way that I would say Draymond Green and these guys are using it for. Like, yes, I use it for news and rumors, to help us, find stuff on the show. But what I don't do is, look up my own name, or look up, you know, and maybe just because I'm not popular enough, but you know what I mean? Like, it's weird to me that these athletes act like that. And I think it goes to your point, Pete, about not caring about what others say or what they do. But
That's all they care about. That's all this.
yeah,
That's all Draymond and KD care about. And my only retort to that, Bernie, is honestly, if he didn't have the mental wherewithal to stop and think before he cold cocked Jordan Poole in Golden State Warriors actual practice facility with a multi tens of $1 million contract on the line, he's not going to stop and look at a source on Twitter. I promise you.
that's
It's
true.
that's a mental state. That's called just immaturity,
Yeah,
generally speaking. So, and it's the same thing with KD. I mean, I'm sorry to bring him into it. I know I've already said his name a few times, but it's the same exact stuff, man. You get upset when people call you out for having a burner account. Don't have one. It's that simple. Don't
yeah,
have one. People won't be making fun of you for it.
yeah.
Same thing for Draymond. He would have called out anybody if they had KG in their name and had it. Any blue check, he was writing back right then.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we can get off this topic. Just let us know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I know that this was again, like I talk about many times before, this is not something that I like to talk about, and really, go on deep conversations, but I just feel like it needs to be had because, we like I said, we love Draymond Green as a player. Like, we love what he does. I think anybody that watches any semblance of basketball, or coaches, or is high level, I would say honestly high level IQ players, like, what Draymond Green is about. But it's the antics that gets everybody riled up and gets everybody into tizzy, and rightfully so, because it is frustrating to see him do that stuff when he's really a good player. But let us know in the comment section down below what you guys make of this sort of situation. Is Draymond Green right to respond the way that he did? Let us know in the comment section down below.